This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Now, as we're approaching the Yom Tov of Shavuos, we start the 3 days of Hagvalah. We know that in the Luchos Rishonos, there was no letter Tes because it was broken, and Chas v'Shalom, Paska Toiva mi Yisrael. But in Luchos Shnios, it didn't just say L'man Yarichon Yamecha, it says L'man Yitav Lach. The Tes represents the epitome, the summit of Bracha to Klal Yisrael. We know that the first Tes in the Torah, Vayar Elokim es ha'ar ki toiv. Toiv, the Bnei Yissaschar brings that Tes has 4 tagim. Normally a Tes has 3 tagim. This Tes has 4 tagim to represent the 36 hours of the Or Haganos. The Tes is a very important letter, especially Ein Toiv Ela Torah. So today we're going to learn about the Ois Tes. Let's pull up the pictures. Actually, I got an email from the Mechaber of Pe'er Halacha yesterday that he didn't even know that we're giving Shiur out of the Sefer, but I was at a bris and I was preparing with the Sefer, and an old Chavrus of his saw me, and he told the Mechaber that, I don't know, he made the connection, so we may be hearing from him soon. Maybe we should bring him on to the Shiur. That would be a good idea. We should get him on. What's tomorrow? Yeah, that's a good idea. Ois Tes. Harosh hayamini tiyakafuf ma'alasecha. The right head should be bent over into it just a bit, like in diagram 6, should be bent into it a little bit. V'lo yekafuf harbe, not too much, like in diagram 7, not too much, even if it's not touching. Now there's an interesting Bir Halacha here. The Bir Halacha says, what's considered kafaf harbe? From the Baruch Shamar, it's masha if it's touching. But he asks, then why does the Beis Yosef say that the issue is because then it looks like a pei? If it's touching, then fakeret, it doesn't look like a pei, because a pei that's touching is pasal. If anything, it looks more like a pei if it's not touching. Okay, ayin in the Bir Halacha Barichos, we're not going to read the whole Bir Halacha. Okay, let's continue in the Mishnas Sofrim. The Harosh Hasmali, the left head, look at number 7, the left head, Tia Kizayin. So basically it comes out, it's like a Chaf and a Zayin. But it should not be like a Chaf and a Vav. The Gimel Tagin Harosh, it has 3 Tagin on its head. It's one of the Shatnez Gates letters. Aval Harosh Yamina Yia Ogol Kavav. The right head should be rounded like a vav, not like a zayin. V'gam lamata mitzad hayimini tia agula. The bottom right should also be rounded, like in picture 10. To my kaf v'zayin. Basically, it's like putting a kaf and a zayin together. Now, when we say it's like a chaf, it means the bottom part. The top part, it has to be kaf of l'soy chamat. The chol ina ma'aka b'diavad. This is not, none of the above mentioned details are ma'aka b'diavad, except for levad be'inyan kafaf harbe. Besides the din that it should be, that if it's very bent, it's pasal. The tzarchiyan ladina ayin v'ayin be'berhalach. Now this is an interesting one. What if it's not bent at all, like in diagram 10? You see in diagram 12, where it's really not bent into it b'chlal. Now, it's an easy fix. You put a little thorn and then it's kafaf b'soicha. The question is, does that now become shaloi kesidron? You got to show it to a kid. If he reads it like a test, it's okay. But even if he does, you need to fix it. It's shaloi kesidron. No. Why? It's not considered shaloi kesidron because the etzem has the tzura. It's just missing a small detail so that you could add. V'im loy haya kaf of klal, it's not bent at all. And v'hatinag loy kara la'is. The tinag doesn't read it as a test. It could be you could still fix it. Now you say, why would you be able to fix it? It's not bent at all. The Tinok doesn't read it as a test. So I looked this up this morning. I'm going to remind you of a halacha we read in Siman Lamed Beis. In Siman Lamed Beis, the halacha is that if you have a ches where the chatoitros is not touching, you'd be allowed to go back and fix it afterwards. It's Siman Lamed Beis Ois Chafei. Why? Even though you bring it to the kid, and the kid said this looks like two Zions. No, it's not because it doesn't have. Here, I'm going to read to you the Mechaber. And you bring it to a kid, and the kid said, that's not a ches, it's two Zions. You're allowed to fix it. Why are you allowed to fix it? Because it's not that the kid really thinks it's two Zions. Sometimes he thinks it's two Zions even when the ches is touching, even when the chatoicharis is touching. He's not familiar with the noise ches the way it's written in a Sefer Torah. He's not familiar with this. He's familiar with the ches we learned yesterday of Rashi. It's just pshuta without the gag. So it's not that he really thinks it's two Zions. It's unfamiliarity to him. So the same thing with the ois test, even though it's not bent into it, he's used to the bent in because that's what his Aleph Beis book says. But not because it's not Ikar Tzuras ha'ois. So therefore, be'etzem we say it has Ikar Tzuras ha'ois. The fact that the kid doesn't know it, it's an unfamiliarity to him. It's not that it doesn't really look this way. And therefore it could be you could fix it. The Mishna Sofrim wants to compare it to the ois ches. And yesh la takana b'tefillin mishum shalai kasedron. Ayin b'siman lam be'ed v'siv chafei le'inyan ches de'chatoi tarois. The efsher duadin bezed the ein morgul b'tes b'li kefifa. He's not accustomed to a test without it being bent into it. But v'loi mikri bezed neshtanis tzurasa. This is not called that the surah of the ois is distorted v'tzarchian. Next, you have to be careful that the two heads don't clash into each other, like in diagram 13, where the two heads are touching each other. Bizar shalayigu harashim zabazah. V'diyavet em yesh lahem takana ayidei greira. V'diyavet if there's takana by scraping it, ayin lekaman b'soif ois shin masher kasavnu sham. Looked later on regarding the ois shin, but it would seem you could scrape it. Im harosh hasmali loy hayat tuanasa kazayin sharosh sahisa agula. This is very interesting. What if the left head didn't look like a Zion? It was rounded. Is that good enough? But it has three tagin. Now you say, what does three tagin do? It's the Tzuras ha'ois. Why would three tagin help? This is interesting. Why? There's an amazing shita of the Ra'im. The Masha Amru beGemara. You know, the Gemara tells us the Shatnes Gates Tzricha Gimel Ziyunin. The Gemara says the letters Shin Ayin Tes Nun Zayin Gimel Tzadi has to have three. We read it Tagim, three Ziyunim, but the Re'im says no. It doesn't refer to Tagim. It refers to three heads, meaning they need to have a Zayin. Meaning, look over here. The left head of the Tes is a Zion, which Zion means it's a square with a coming out of the stick. So the square has three heads. It has one side, two sides, three sides. It's not referring to what we call tagin. It's referring to it not being rounded, but rather it being squared. That's the sheet of the Re'im of Shatnes Gates. It's not referring to tagin. It's referring to three sides. Hainu loy b'tagin el shelo yaser Hashem ago. It shouldn't be rounded. Ela moshach shehei l'chol roish gimel pinim. It should have three heads. Uli ikuvahu kedemuch le'eser soif sim lamed vav. It's ma'akev. But now, so you don't have the three sides. You have it rounded. But now you put three tagim on it. So you want to know, can I be yoitza when the Gemara says three ziyunin with just tagim without three sides? The aim lahavi raya mi prima gadam shekasav dibdiavad kashim loyha kizayin. So you'll say, let's bring a raya. The Prima Gadam speaks about this explicitly. Prima Gadam says that if the left head was not like a Zayin, b'diavad it's kosher. No, the Prima Gadam is talking about it's not a Zayin. It still has three sides. It's just not a Zayin that it's coming out from both sides. Meaning, the Pri Megadim is talking about the Ois Tes made like a Chaf and a Vav. So it's not a Zayin. A Zayin, the head extends both sides of the stick. This, it only extends on one side. So at least in the Pri Megadim's case, you still have three pinim. You still have three faces. The Efshir Shalher over me based studim. The Pri Megadim is talking about if it did not pass on both sides. Kazayin avaloy agula. Pri Megadim is not talking about if it's rounded. The tzarch iyam lahareim. It's a tzarch iyam whether the reim would say this is good enough. And perhaps, says the Mishna Sofrim, we don't paskin like the re'im that that when the Gemara says that Shatnez Gaze has to have three ziyunim, that's not referring to three panim, it's referring to three tagim. He says, "V'gam ulay in halacha k're'im bazeh, v'ayim misim lamed vav v'Mishna Berura sukatan tesvav bazeh." Okay, let us. We'll hold over here tomorrow. Be'ezus Hashem, same time. The Ois Yud. Tomorrow we're going to learn. Tomorrow is mamish me'ein oilam haba because Hashem created oilam haba with the Ois Yud. Okay. Kol tov, everyone. Have a wonderful day.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.